this is a two-part presentation from Mod here, so I'll kick it off, and then Jacques van Rensburg, who's running our Botswana operations and knows more than anyone else basically on the planet as to what we're doing there, will fill you in on the rest. We're a little bit more restricted being an ASX listed company and what we can actually say, so everything we've got on our slides and our discussions is public domain, and so we'll stick pretty close to the script on that one. One thing I just would like to say, I completely concur with the view that the resource sector has turned around. It's been quite subtle, but it's building, and we're seeing it in lots of levels. Metal prices starting to move. Terry and I have been involved in nickel a long time, and nickel's always a first mover. Nickel did the impossible thing that it should never have done. It fall below $4 a pound, sat there for about 18 months. And really at that level, 90% of global production, forget what the analysts say, of 60%, 90% is underwater and is subsidised by smelters and other operations basically to stay in business. But when nickel starts to move, that's the metal to watch. That's my experience anyway. And copper's starting to show a little bit of signs of life. And again, there's been a lot of focus on copper about Chinese end user demand, all this sort of stuff here. The supply chain is starting to get very fragmented. The downturn in copper prices sort of pushed a lot of companies to expand their capital, build more plants, mine lower grade ores, lower quality ores, and the old sort of heartland of copper production is really suffering a bit of stress at the moment simply by ageing mines and infrastructure and heavy sort of debt load. So, I'm pretty optimistic about copper, and we're seeing it even the major copper producers globally are combing the planet now for new projects. So even our Botswana project, 6 weeks old from the first drill hole, has already grabbed some attention from some large industry players. So what I thought I'd do is just run through a few slides and then hand over to Jacques here. And sorry, here we go. And similarly to Paul, we're obligated just to put up this slide on, basically which says you shouldn't believe anything we say about anything at all. It's you have to make your own opinions on what you know and your own conclusions and speak to your advisor. So that's just my duty that I have to say that. Mod Resources has been a dramatic 3 months. There's a history going back some 25 years in the company. It was originally a company called Medical Corporation. It was set up by a group of Perth-based Singapore and Malaysian doctors who built hospitals in Vietnam, and it went through a whole lot of transitions, and maybe 8 or 10 years ago it started looking at resources and ended up with some assets in Botswana, fairly marginal before I joined in 2013, and it was always a bit of a fringe. And I should say too that the only thing we can probably trump Paul on is that he only had to jump on a train from Surrey to get here tonight. Jacques had to fly up from Joburg this morning, and I flew from Perth, so my voice is somewhat challenged after all that dry air on planes. But look, the share price last 3 months reflects the discovery of T3. It's a turnaround event for this company and really mirrors obviously Metal Tiger's share performance. And we're starting to see a lot of Perth and Sydney shareholders becoming aware of our 30% joint venture partner, Metal Tiger, and how they perform on the market is starting to become an indicator for how Mod looks as well. So been quite a busy sort of few months there. Mod actually has another project in New Zealand, quite a substantial gold project, CRA Exploration, which morphed into Rio ultimately. Had a gold project called Sam's Creek. Through a series of ownership, Mod ended up with 80% of this gold project. It's about 1 million ounces. It's a porphyry hosted deposit. Porphyry deposits globally tend to be very large. We've drilled it till we ran out of money basically, and the gold price started to fall away. And have recently recognised that there's quite a high grade component to this. All this is out there in the public arena. And we decided that with Botswana rapidly expanding in front of us there, we couldn't cover both. There was no synergies here, and we've advised the market that we are looking for selling part of our interest. We own 80%. The 20% is actually owned by a company called Oceana Gold, which is New Zealand's largest gold producer and a very substantial globally and growing gold and copper company listed on the ASX. So anyway, we're now sat in December, and that's out there. January, after Terry and I caught up in August last year, we'll just run briefly through the history of the acquisition, but we signed a deal. Terry wrote the first cheque, which ensured that we tied up this very large, very significant land holding in Botswana. And the Minister signed off on that in January 2016. That was a trigger for us to start drilling, and I think as Paul pointed out, we started drilling in February, and virtually immediately we had success. So March we were able to announce some quite significant results from what we call T3. So very, very early in the piece we are able to report some success here. Mod, just quick snapshot there. There's our ticker there. We've got far too much paper. It goes back historically 1.2 billion. Market cap sitting around about 40 million today. The board and related parties actually says greater than 20%. It is well north of that number. I own about 4%. The rest of the board about another 6%, and then our major shareholder about another, and related parties 17%. So you know, all these sort of things are becoming more important to us now. Cash, we raised $2 million yesterday out of Sydney in a placement, and we currently have announced we have a rights issue, even though we haven't yet announced the trigger date or the threshold date for that rights issue, but already there's some interest in there. So we were trying to get to as a cash balance around about $5 million, so we can really step up the tempo in Botswana, not just on the Metal Tiger joint venture licenses, but on our own 100% licenses, which are quite substantial as well. The map here is really probably one of the keys to what's happening, I think, in the belt. And anyone who hasn't been to Botswana, it's a wonderful country. Anyone who goes there will know that already. And you probably fly up to Maun or Morn, some people pronounce it, up the top there, which is the edge of the Okavango Delta. So that's kind of tourist central town there. And up that eastern end of this copper belt, which extends through Botswana about 400 kilometres and then into Namibia. So the border, sorry, there's a thing here, I think. There's a border here with Namibia, and the copper belt basically extends through Botswana. It's about 100 kilometres wide. It's all flat. It's all covered in sand. There's very little outcrop here, and so there's been some misleading assumptions on this copper belt. One was that all the copper's up that eastern end, simply because that's where historically most of the exploration has been carried out. Two, that it gets very deep cover as you approach Namibia, because people envisage those wonderful photographs of sand dunes which are on the Skeleton Coast, which is probably 1,000 kilometres further west, but the assumption is this very deep sand cover, another myth. And three, I guess basically there was no copper in this part of the world. We never bought into that story at all. And so what's really happened in the last 12 months, it's been a very eventful time in Botswana. If I just, wind back a step there, in Botswana, the economy is, probably a lot of you know, is the world's largest diamond producer. As I understand it, they have about a 15-year sort of time frame on diamond mining. They're looking to diversify their economy outside of diamonds, beef and tourism. And copper is very high on the list there. It's a wonderful jurisdiction for many reasons, but they have a very clear plan for their country and very transparent and very open, and it is a pleasure and actually an honour to be able to work in this country, I believe. So anyway, Mod had been there for 5 years. Jacques has been involved with companies here for some 9 years. We're both geologists, by the way, as is Terry, and two other gentlemen next row back, so there's a little corner up here of geologists here. Anyway, what happened in 2015 was that the pioneer producer in this region was a company called Discovery Metals, DML. It was an Australian listed company. It tied up a very large landholding, large part of the blue up here, and most of this orange pinky colour down here. That holding was held in two companies. One was called DCB, doesn't really matter what it stands for, around their Baseto operations here, where they operated 2 open pit mines and built a $200 million processing facility, flotation plant here, and infrastructure, wonderful infrastructure already in place. Then on this regional ground, this was their exploration holdings, some 14 licenses covering about 6,500 square kilometres. That was held by another company called DMI. Along came several years previously an American private company called Cupric Canyon Capital. It's worth visiting their website. A very interesting bunch of guys there. They acquired this block of blue ground down the south from a Canadian company for around about $80 million 3 years ago, and found and started progressing a number of deposits here. Cupric Canyon, the American group here, they bid for these Basato assets, which very, what can I say, sort of efficiently fit their plan. It provides them with access to a plant. There's some 5 million tonnes of copper tied up in 7 resources in this blue area here. We bid for the pale pink area. The MOD pre-existing licenses are the red colours around here. And we were successful in getting that bid, and Metal Tiger wrote the first cheque. So Metal Tiger earned basically, or bought effectively, 30% of this holding in this very large area here. MOD still retains 100% and 80% interest in the margins here. MOD spent over the last 5 years about $9 or $10 million drilling out a resource which is called Momo, just up in this area here, and doing some other grassroots exploration. The scale of this area gets people every time. This is a scale bar for 100 kilometres. There's a freeway, and it's a 2-lane highway, basically runs all the way down from Momo up here, the main town, down to Hunzi, which is quite a substantial town down here. Runs right through the axis of this project here. And it takes you 2 hours flat out to get from one side of the leases to the other. This is a large holding. You will be very hard pressed to find a copper belt anywhere else on the planet where one company could have that much prospective ground, and for that ground to have had so little exploration, and for the types of deposits that we're looking for, which are sediment hosted deposits, to be readily discoverable, because simple geological techniques, soil sampling, interpretation of structure, they're the main sort of leaders into these deposits. So it's relatively low cost exploration and very effective exploration. And then, on this map, I've probably been on a little bit too long, but all these white circles is, at the start of the year, we sat down with Terry and Jacques, and we highlighted 10 targets. We said 10's enough here, 10 areas here that we think need drilling. This is going to be our 6-month drilling campaign. So we started drilling in about the 10th of February. We started off with, so we label them simply T1 to 10, and for all various reasons, a little table of those over the page there. We started drilling at T4, just 15 minutes from Hunzi here, very civilised town here, and we're finding copper from basically drill hole 1 onwards, and we thought this is a pretty good start. Wandered across to T2 over here, somewhere here east of our Momo project. Didn't have a lot of luck there, drilled 3 holes. Stepped aside from that, and then we moved into T3 early March, and bingo, straight away drilling visible copper, and we've stopped at T3. The brakes are on for all the right reasons here, and there are still, I just want to make a point here, there's still numerous targets out here yet to be tested, and our geologists, led by Jacques, are constantly coming back with things. Why aren't we drilling this? And what about this soil anomaly, or what about this geological structure? So there's a lot of work to be done here. We also have obligations through the Mines Ministry, and we're catching up with the Director of Mines in Gaborone there in next Thursday, just to update. And we're constantly talking to the department and trying to meet their objectives as well. Botswana's all about employment, creating new industry for the company, building an industry in the copper sector here as well. So it's a pretty unusual situation we're in. The combined holdings of MOD and Metal Tiger are the largest in that copper belt. There's about 11,500 square kilometres here. We consider that a lot of the bits of those licenses that you don't want have already been relinquished. So we're getting down to the bits that you really do want. So MOD 100%, but with a 70-30 joint venture. We've talked about these things here, numerous targets. Cupric still has the largest deposit, single deposit. It's a thing called Zone 5. There's 2 million tonnes of copper there. They're planning a sort of 20 to 40 year mine life 6 decline mine. It's funded by Barclays Natural Resource Fund, and they've announced results of a feasibility study on that project as an underground mine, only going for the sulphide ore, not the oxide. Everyone's learnt from that, from I guess Discovery's pioneering ways on that concept of mining oxide and transitional material. So anyway, this will be a significant underground mine, and Kuprick have announced targets of around about $1 a pound cash cost. So that puts them right in the sweet spot here. So T3, this is on a joint venture license, or just surrounding T3 alone. The joint venture owns 14 licenses. This one license is around about 800 square kilometres, so we've got everything covered around it. Immediate success, high-grade copper straight away, and now, as I say, dominating our activities here. It's a sediment-hosted mineralisation, copper mineralisation with high-grade silver and copper zones, as we've announced. The latest intersection we've announced is 52 metres at 2% copper, which is a pretty good number in copper. Global average grade of copper, mainly driven by the large South American porphyry copper deposits. They've been around for 50 years, I guess, maybe longer, around about 0.4%, 0.5. These are large volume, huge capital projects. Some of them are very mature, and hence there's this global shift in copper, which I think is not yet really quite understood. We get some very tasty silver grades as well. So 90 grams per tonne silver, equivalent to about 3 ounces of silver, just to put that into context. And the T3 mineralisation, as we know it now, and it's still very early days, is quite unique. And Jacques will probably expand on that. The Botswana joint venture structure, we've created this little corporate structure here, I guess. Metal Tiger here, Mod Resources established a company called Metal Capital in London, and then we've also in Botswana created a company called Shukudu Metals, and that just means rhino metals. We sort of tried to keep the theme of Metal Tiger, Metal Rhino alive. I think that was Cameron's idea. And the DMI assets, this is the company that basically we bought with Metal Tiger. Those assets are effectively folded into that Botswana company, and we have in-country guys who sort of manage that process. So if you like, the money stream into this joint venture structure is, over time, will come through this process and reside here. I think we've covered off on everything there. Just a little point here. People who haven't been there don't realise this is a very civilised country. This is a full-on freeway that's almost a loop road around Botswana. It's mowed. We're driving along this the other day. They had a fleet of probably 20 tractors mowing the verge, simply because this is the land of 1 billion donkeys and zebra and things running out across the road, and trucks and cattle and all sorts of stuff. So they try and, but this is a major asset just to get around in this country. The list of targets, I won't go through them. I've highlighted in this brown colour here the ones that are Metal Tiger 30%, Mod 70%, and the white ones here are Mod 100%, and basically the rationale for working through these targets. I might say there's many more below that list that we just haven't got to at this stage. And I'm going to hand over to Jacques. Bad luck.
I'm a geologist for the last 28, 30 years, and then involved in Botswana since 2008 for Hana mining coming out of the DRC after I've done the stint on the diamonds, as any good geologist should do. Yeah. From there, we've drilled on the Hana side from zone 6, zone 5 down to Banana. So all this is known territory, and after 8 years you do form an opinion on what to look for where. And having said that, something like this T3, which I will elaborate on, just stands out immediately. Now, Julian touched on the subject that because everything is covered under sand and calcrete, your only tools for doing exploration here is very simple. You use Aeromag as a mapping tool and soil geochem to zoom in on the targets. And that's exactly what we did, and we got lucky and we found this beautiful soil anomaly sticking out through the calcrete. And to date, we've drilled 13 RC holes on this target, of which we've received back results of the first 4, and they've been released. So a few odd things regarding this T3 target. We're still way up in the hanging wall, and I'm not going to go into detail, on the geology side, but it's much higher copper than what all the other prospects have been found at, which is generally regarded as copper and silver occurring on the contact, hanging wall footwall contact. This is not the case here. Vein hosted mostly, lovely intercepts, and then you'll see the associated lead zinc. Now, in having drilled more than 800 holes, we haven't found that before. Neither did DMI on the DML ground, and on the Hannah side also not. So we're sitting with lovely molybdenum. That's definitely something special, and it means something, but we still don't know what. And luckily, we've got a wealth of geological knowledge to tap into here. But that molybdenum is telling us something odd. We are aiming here, and then also on the last, just to get back to the silver values that we've encountered recently and that was released during our previous release. Very high silver values if you compare it to our neighbor Kuprick on the eastern side, where they've got 23 grams a ton, and way up in the north, zone 5, their flagship operation, as little as 19 grams a ton. So our very high silver values that Julian just showed up as 69 grams a ton of silver is exceptional. That's very good. And if we carry on, to give you just a little bit of background, without boring you, that's what we inherited. We found these copper, lead and zinc anomalies, with red being the copper, the black being the lead, and the yellow being the zinc. And true as Bob, we are finding galena in every RCL as we're going along, which is not common and not usual to find. As we are speaking, the 13 RCLs, where is this little pointer? Yeah. We're using the RC rig, which is very fast and it's giving us literally a hole every day and a half, stepping it out on the strike extent. And the 2 diamond rigs have firstly confirmed what the RC did on the first 4 holes. And we realized that we're dealing with a very shallow dipping, northerly package of mineralization. There's no better word to call it at this stage, because it's a block of mineralization that's dipping shallowly towards the north. Lots of interpretation should follow, but you can only do that from core, and that was the reason for bringing up the core rigs, so we can have good structure to look at. And I reckon we are going to see, that's my opinion, a low angle thrust coming in from the northern side. Thrusting has been observed on Momo. Thrusting has been observed all over the Hannah ground. I just think it's going to play a much bigger role in this instance here. This buried dome that Julian referred to and that we've been talking about, I think is a pretty accurate description. If you think about a canoe that's been buried under sediments, that's exactly what we're sitting here on this outline. And it's not sticking out like the typical hanging wall footwall contacts on Hannah's Banana and further up on the Discovery Metals grounds. So hopefully, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed for this one, is that the complete anticline has been preserved under the sediments. And we knew it must be there. From the day Chakra Site zone was found in 2009, we knew that down this dip, another second anticline must exist, and nobody actually ever drilled it, that's all. So there's a lot of luck to be at the right place at the right time to get something of this and make it. RC drilling is just stepping out on the sides. Diamond is testing the down dip extensions with 2 diamond rigs. I can tell you about the copper silver sulfides that's been observed in every RC hole to date. We are fine-tuning our course of getting the samples as quickly as possible to the labs in South Africa. And I think we are nearly there, where a constant flow of results will continue as soon as the backlog has now been filled in. This is interpretation at an early stage. And then there's nothing really you can do. There's no more geophysics you can do on this, because we've got excellent quality and resolution of aeromag that was flown by chopper, what you guys are looking at here. At the end of the day, this needs to be found by a drill rig, and we are planning to do that. Stepping it out, I reckon after tomorrow the first 200 meter step out is going to happen on the ground. And if you've got enough confidence on exactly what direction it's going in, probably a 400 meter step out is going to follow. But the role the RC is playing at this stage, and I must mention, we are considering bringing at least another one of those in, is it's fast, it's accurate. We've encountered a lot of water in absolutely every hole in this area, which is what we want to know. It's fractured, lots of veining, so the area is good. And then we'll step out along strike with the RC and follow up with the diamond core. And if our theories hold up, we are only dealing on the northern limb of this dome, somewhere in here on the southern side. And I know Julian liked that little puppy there. There's a red pimple there. And that needs to be tested as well, because we've got excellent geochem values overlying this right there. So that's the plan. The plan is in place, and we always say, as long as you've got a plan, you're there. This is just a quick glimpse of what has been done. You guys have all seen the results of 10, 11, 12, and 13. Those have been released. Lovely. We followed that up with a diamond in the southern direction, and that was because we found out, and we were right there, that this package of mineralization is dipping towards the north. So going forward on the northern limb, everything will be directed in a southern direction. We're hitting, and we did, on all these diamond holes, the core at a pretty perpendicular angle, so we're getting very, very close to true widths in what we're drilling on the ground. Number 1 and 2 completed. Visible mineralization confirming number 12 and 13. Currently we've got both rigs, and this is a brave move. Yeah. Stepping back 200 meters to number 3 and number 4 and going to check the down dip. Getting constant updates from the guys in the field, and everything is fitting the picture. It's looking as it should look. But yeah, so that's our diamond, and here's our RC. Oops. So the RC is currently on this one. 22 finished yesterday, 23 is being drilled today as we're speaking. This is an interpretation of, at an early stage, what we are seeing as a cross-section. looking towards the east. There you can see the soil anomalies on surface, and that was all that showed through the calcrete. I think the best soil value was 28 ppm, and went through it. And the RC, you should keep in mind that we are limited because of the water on the one side and the amount of the weight of the water on top, that we can only go down roughly 120 meters vertical. So all we are using the RC rig for is to find out whether the mineralization of copper is there in that hole. And once we've seen that, that's good enough, because the diamond can come and follow up and get all the detail. So it's a very handy tool. The RC is now marching in a westerly direction out of the paper, and we've tested for 400 meters into the paper, and it's continuous, whereas the diamond rigs will be working and checking the down dip side of this package of mineralized rock lying here. Interpretation is very preliminary. That's where it is. That's exactly what it is. We've been busy for 6 weeks. That's all. No outcrop. There are no rocks in the vicinity. That is special. That is very special. In the 8 years, 70 meters of mineralization has never been drilled out. And I think I've done my fair bit of between 800 and 900 drill holes on that belt. This we will have to see, whether it's a substantial regional thrust. Most likely. This has now grown to not more than 500. We're at 700 meters as we're speaking. Chalcopyrite and bornite. I get pretty excited if I see the purple bornite, even in the RC chips, because you don't see everything. And the RC is generally underreporting. So once you're going to put your diamond hole in there and your core back, this is just, it's lovely. Copper in shallow depths, yeah, 20 meters, shallowest we've found so far. Now that implies that's 20 meters downhole depth, which is probably about 15 meters under the surface.
Long-handled shovel.
Yeah. This is just showing up some of the good grades and the intervals. So yeah, we are at the stage now where what we are finding and what we are seeing at T3 at an early age does not have to stand back for anything else that has been discovered on this belt up to date, if not better. This is lovely photographs. I think it appeared in a press release. All the purple bornite vein hosted. That is from MO01D, our first diamond hole in there. There you can see how odd. This is the actual results as we got them back. Have a look at these silver values that appear up here. And there you can see how wonderful these values of 148 and 128 and 120. I mean, those don't exist on other places and other resources on the belt. It's non-existent. In my mind, this 5%, 5.9, you know, that's DRC, Zambian grades we're looking at there. That's comparable to Zambian grades, Zambian copper belt grades. This is odd. I can't explain this, and I don't think Julian or Terry can. We've honestly looked at it, but I'm sure down the line we'll definitely know what the reason for this moly here. And then if you look at the low zinc and low lead values, well, 60 meters further on, we had backgrounds of 0.3 to 0.4% lead and zinc.
Up to 3%.
Up to 3%, yeah, percenters. And 60 meters further on, so this is something special, something odd going on in this vein, stockwork of veins that's happening. But yeah, the grade, it speaks for itself. That's the long and short of it. just to get back, this is T3. Now, I mean, we can literally stand here and talk about T3 for the whole evening, but that's not the idea. I must tell you a little bit about Momo. We've spent time and money, and we've done our scoping study on Momo. A sweet little 2.7 million ton high-grade deposit, only drilled down to 500 meters. Yeah, that's the deepest one. 500 meters. So this needs to be expanded. There's our 2.7 million tons, 2% copper, and 2% seemed to be the magic number in this belt. There we beat the other buggers with 50 grams of silver again, compared to their 23 or 19s. I mean, this is double, man. Copper equivalent, good. So yeah, that's Momo. Now that the DMI licenses have been acquired, for the first time, the opportunity to expand this towards the southwest and northeast is open. Also, moving out of the page, we can now do a proper drill in mod MTR ground and drill the thing at a 60-degree angle and see what's going on. So we've got the ground holding all around Momo for the first time. So yeah, it's a positive thing. The basis and the groundwork put in place here, lovely. I think the scope is good to expand on Momo, and if we can get it up to 10 million ton, it's a lovely little satellite deposit that can be mined. Yeah.
Satellite,
Yeah.
It was the center of the action.
Chalcopyrite, bornite, Chakra Site. This is just a mineral composition. I mean, bottom line is, if you see Chakra Site, there's a good old Aussie friend of mine who refers to it as Chakra Site, and it's high-grade copper. And Momo, there's a lot of Chakra Site, very shallow, and all this high-grade copper elements brings you to this lovely network that was done by IMO. Format. Beautiful photograph. I think the bottom line is this good recovery grades, and this is top notch, bloody
clean,
very clean. Yeah, it can be blended with lower grade stuff
rubbish stuff.
produced from other areas. That's what they use this high grade concentrate for. I'm not a metallurgist, but I know if I look at 93% copper recovery, that's bloody good. That's what it is. And a con of more than 40%.
Cheap to transport.
Yeah. Molelo, which means fire. That's a lovely 500 meter deep drill hole we sank in there. Hey, you can see the drill rig on the 3D. And went past it. Very interesting, intersecting these conglomerates way down. Now, I don't believe any of this specific formation, which is actually below the footwall still. That's called the cookie formation, and that's resting conformably on the original rhyolites, which is the basement, producing this very iron-rich rocks. And funnily enough, this is a very good 3D model of the geophysics. IOCG comparison is made. We need more drilling on this area, but the fact that we found very elevated platinum and palladium values from this drill hole shows that we're moving into the right direction there.
On the next slide, I think.
Yeah, I think it's the next one. There you go, that's it. There you can see the actual platinum palladium values coming out of this highly chloritic altered and hematitic altered rocks. And obviously we, with a beautiful sorted conglomerate like that, you would assay for gold. But no, the PTPD, that's what we are after, PGMs. And then towards the south, this is Julian's favorite, the Carpal Craton. It's an interesting environment, very, very much so. And when the plates moved 1.1 billion years, yeah, everything is right. And this 3-point junction there's a few excellent targets that's been generated, and the guys are actually working on it as we are sitting here. A team was sent out. So in my mind, I wouldn't mind having at least 3 to 5 drill-ready targets, regional targets, in place, confirmed by soils, while we're working out on T3 what should happen and how it should be done. So we are busy getting this regional work in a very good standing. So at any given stage, an RC rig can go and drill test the targets generated, which Julian put up earlier. Yeah, that's a 10. Yeah, that's moving into the exploration. Drilling at T3 to scope out the size and grade and the geometry of this new discovery. This is our priority, because that's a game changer in my mind. Geophysical surveys, yeah, that's it. We will probably, as we're speaking, go over to some IP and downhole EMs on the sulfide targets. Test new structural and geochemical, geophysical targets alongside. That's more of them existing there. Exactly, resume the drilling of other targets on regional licenses. That will happen in due course, I expect. As soon as we've got all our geochem results back and infill sampling has already happened, one will be able to take a rig, a dedicated team, and go and work on these regional targets. Resource extensional drilling below Momo, correct, to enlarge that to a 10 million size. Yeah, because the basics is in place there. We understand Momo, we've done work on it. Metallurgical, Julian, maybe you should come and talk about the development.
We're very keen, not just exploration, but to start progressing this whole project towards development here. So we've done a lot of metallurgical test work on Momo. We'll do the same for T3. One of our directors runs a metallurgical consulting and laboratory firm in Western Australia, a very experienced guy. So we've got all the right team in place for this project here. Momo, we want to progress that to pre-feasibility study. And part of the reason for that is that we think we're looking at a potential for an underground mine here. Scoping study was positive. We need more resources. Jacques pointed out, we need to get more drilling underway and sort of push that resource out. Sedgman is an engineering, sort of global engineering plant processing kind of organisation, and we have an agreement with them in place that they will tip $1.5 million US into Momo to progress the pre-feasibility study, and for that they end up with 10% of the project and various other rights. And then we're looking at various ore processing options. Around the planet, what this downturn has done, it's flushed out a lot of surplus equipment plants, as in flotation plants. If you're going to start scratch and build a 1 million tonne a year processing plant, you're up for well north of $100 million. There's a number of those floating around the planet, just abandoned and available, I guess, in some shape or form. So we're looking at all these sort of things. And really the other thing too is that part of our relationship with the Botswana government is to support the community of Hansi. It's a town, it's a region there, through employment and training, and we're very committed to doing that. So our operations are based out of Hansi. If we get things really progressing to a point where we start getting into development, we'll look to employ people out of Hansi. So it's very important for us to build local relations there. So look, I think I'll stop it right there.